Branch of the service were you in, and in which war did you serve?
I was in the Navy, and I served in World War II.
What was your highest rank?
The Lieutenant JG.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
Where were you living at the time?
Well, I was in college in Yankton, South Dakota, and I started off in the Navy Air Force, and the first time I soloed, I got seasick. So the Navy said, we don't want you. And so perhaps you would be better off in the surface Navy. So and they said, if I was able to finish in 3 years, college in 3 years, then I could I could go directly into the Navy and go to midshipman school and go into the engineering division, and so I never it was good.
Do you remember what year it was when you enlisted?
Probably I was well, I was still in the service and still in college, and I probably enlisted and then finished college. So that was in 41.
Why did you pick the Navy as the branch of service to enlist?
Well, the Yankton College had an air service, and so I volunteered for the air service until I got seasick.
Do you recall your first days in service? So after you actually enlisted at the college, you didn't go right to basic training? Did you
No,
continue?
I never went to basic training. I went for I was able to finish in 3 years, and I took in the summer of 43, I was able to a Japanese Nisei and I were the only students in the summer class of where we took German, and then this was toward the end of the summer, and then I went directly home, and I received orders at home to go to Northwestern University in Chicago for midshipman school, and and then I went to midshipman school, and then I went from there to Cornell University and to engineering school and to learn diesel engines, and then I was ready to go into the service.
How long were you at Northwestern for the midshipman's school?
1 semester, probably 3 months. they talk about the 90-day wonders, so I'm
Oh, so you
assuming.
were one of them.
Well, I suppose I did.
What was your undergraduate degree in when at Yankton?
History and economics.
What kinds of things did they teach you at midshipman school?
Oh, to be that would be an officer's training school, and basic military endeavors. Yeah.
And how long did you spend at Cornell University at engineering school?
Another semester, and that would have been probably from January to May or something like that. And
at that semester you learned engineering skills?
Yes, yes.
Did you enjoy engineering?
Oh yes, yeah.
So was that your choice or the Navy's?
No, I guess I think it was just the Navy, and because I had a singular career. It was not a slam dunk thing. It was not a you're here, you're here, you're here. I went to actually I went to the Solomon, Maryland, the island, not the Solomon Islands, but the training school for at Solomon's, Maryland, for ship for landing craft, and then I went to the first ship I was on in my life. I was the engineering officer the first time in my life, and I was and we were training another crew to go with us, and that's you didn't fool around.
What was the name of your first ship that you were that engineering officer?
The LCC 504, and I was on that ship all for the 3 years in my service.
Really?
I did not change at all.
And that's the ship you picked up in the Solomons, Maryland?
Yes, yeah.
And your entire 3 years on the LCC 504, were you always the engineer?
LCFF 504, Landing Craft Flotilla Flag 504.
Didn't you have a nickname for it?
No, I don't know.
What were your duties as an engineer officer?
Was to keep the ship, the engines, keep the machinery aboard ship going, to maintain it, or to see that the crew maintained it. I did not work on the equipment myself.
You supervised
Yes,
the
yeah.
other sailors?
Yeah.
Do you remember any of your instructors from either Northwestern University or Cornell?
I don't remember. I don't remember their name. I remember for instance, one of the officers at midshipman school, which was in the University of Chicago. But I forget his name. But I can remember his what he looked like.
What was your impression of the training that you received?
Oh, I thought it was good. I really, nobody, I'll probably say this again, but no one in my book had as fine a service orientation, service relationship as I did. Just great. And I went from I went from midshipman school to engineering school to this ship in Solomons, Maryland, and then we took that ship around to San Diego, and from San Diego to Pearl Harbor, to the Philippines, and then we went up to Japan, and at that time we had looked at Nagasaki. That is, the crew had gone to, to see the devastation there. But I can't say that I was at all critical of any of the service-oriented activities. I got a good training, and I had there were 3 or 4 officers aboard ship that kept the ship going. We were a flagship, which was a training ship for LSTs. That's what we were ultimately in the West when we got to the Hawaiian Islands, and we trained and did maneuvers out there. Then we went to the Philippines and did some more. Okinawa did some more, and then up on to Japan. And at Japan, we were the flagship for the commanding officer, who was a 4-striper. This was a captain, and his task was to see or transfer recruits, or not recruits, service people from Korea to the back to Japan, and so I don't know how many months our ship was in Sasebo Harbor while this commanding officer was shipping back people that he got from Korea back into Japan, into the civilian life.
When you left San Diego, do you know what year? Do you remember what?
You mean when we left?
When you left the United States
to go out?
Yeah.
It probably must have been 44. It might have been 45.
And when you left San Diego, you went to Pearl Harbor. Did you stay there for any length of time, or did you just pass through there?
We were a training ship for
LSTs. What does LST stand for?
Landing ship the T would be tank, landing ship tank. It was probably 500 feet long and maybe 20 or 30 feet wide, and whereas our ship was only probably 150 feet long and 18 or 19 feet wide. It was a small ship.
How many crew members would?
30.
You went across the whole ocean on that?
Yeah.
And you didn't get seasick?
No, well, no, not really.
So while you were
the story on that one is that I never smoked, and yet but the practice, well, it was part of the practice, but it was, whenever you ranked somebody, when somebody got a rank, they would pass out cigars, and they would pass me a cigar, and I'd have to smoke it. Well, I got seasick smoking, and the crew just loved to line up in back of a bulkhead, a wall, and watch August seasick smoking a cigar. So that, I don't know whether that was bad or good or bad, but anyway, that was it.
How long did you stay in Pearl Harbor training the LSTs?
Probably, what, maybe 6 months.
Did you live right on ship at that?
Oh, yes, yeah.
And then you went right from Pearl Harbor to the Philippines?
To the Philippines, and
Where did you stay there?
We just briefly. We were our ship. I don't know just why we went there, because we didn't train ships the way we had been doing it elsewhere.
Did you get to leave your ship at all in the Philippines and see any of the?
Yes, yeah, we were somewhere along the way. I don't know whether it was the Philippines. I think it was. A United States ship was in the harbor, and I went aboard that because I understood that there was a member of the crew from my hometown, from Avon. Well, I didn't see him, but I saw somebody else that was from Avon, and he didn't know that the other guy was aboard ship, and this was the Franklin, or one of the the big ships, and but it had been suffered damage, that is military damage.
When your ship, your little LCFF, went from place to place, did you travel in a convoy or your one little ship by itself?
We went probably with ships. We did not, probably 2 or 3 ships, not many, but on the other hand, it was unlikely that we would go alone.
After your layover in the Philippines, you went on to Japan?
Pardon?
After your layover
Yes.
at the Philippines, you went on to Japan?
Yes.
And you first landed at Nagasaki?
No, we at Sasebo Harbor, and Sasebo is a name of a city in Japan, and Sasebo Harbor was where we stayed for several months while the captain, flag officer, had his duty was to repatriate servicemen from Korea.
What would your duties be while you were in Sasebo?
I played poker and bridge, and there were 3 officers aboard ship. Myself, the commanding officer, 4 officers, because myself, the commanding officer, then there's the executive officer who was second in command, and then the signal officer. So there were 4. And
were you a lieutenant by this time? Were you a
yes,
lieutenant?
I was a lieutenant
before
going.
you left the
Yep,
United States.
Yeah.
After your months in Japan, where did you go?
Then by that time we came home to San Diego, and I could have I'm the only this is my story. I'm the only person in the United States Navy who had a ship under his command, and that ship never left the port. And that was when we were in San Diego, because we needed some repairs, and we were moved from Site 1, which was in San Diego, to Site 2. I don't know what that was, but and the purpose of it was we needed to move, and I'm the only. My story is I'm the only commanding officer of a United States naval vessel that never went to sea. So, and then I could have gone back around through the canal and up the East Coast, but I opted to drive across country. So I bought a car, a 32 car for $300, and drove it. Well, I wanted to go to Yankton too on the way, see, and so that.
How did you become the commanding officer of that ship? Was it a different ship, or was it the same ship?
Same ship.
What happened to your other?
They retired, or their term of duty was over, and there was the commanding officer, the executive officer, and then I was the third in command.
Did you see combat at all while you were overseas?
No.
Were there any casualties in your unit?
No.
Can you recall a couple of your memorable experiences?
Well, yeah, you mean for playing poker or bridge?
Anything, if that was memorable.
Well, I don't know that, but I probably had the most outstanding value of my service in the military that anybody could have had. Anybody. And I went to midshipman school. I went from there. I went to engineering school and, first class universities. And then I went to a training ship. Sure, it was tough because I had never been aboard a ship, and so I learned, and it was difficult, but it was a good experience. And then I don't think that we had any unusual experiences as we went from San Diego to Pearl Harbor, to the Philippines, to Okinawa, and up the coast. It was all good, but it was there were no unusual incidents.
When you went through Pearl Harbor, did you get to see the damage of where we'd been bombed?
Yes, and Roosevelt died when we were coming into port at Diamond Head. I remember that, and that was announced over our radio. Yeah.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Not that I know of. I don't know of any. I don't. Not that I never sought any. I never. I felt that I did. I had. I really felt that I had the best possible service. Really. So I couldn't complain or regret any part of it.
How did you stay in touch with your family while you were in the service?
By letter. We were not married until I was, actually I was 2 years of law school, and the third year of law school, then I got married. So that was in 48. So, and
So you wrote letters home?
yeah.
What was the food like?
Well, we had what should I say? He was not a clerk, but he was he was, it was the oh dear, I can't remember. I remember his looks. I remember he wore white white.
You actually had a cook on board?
Yes. Oh yeah. And
so you had real meals. You didn't have any C rations for you guys.
Oh no. We had real meals, and I can't even think of remember his name. I'm not sure of his name, but the fellow that we had was a kind of he served only the officers, and he was responsible for their meals, and so he served them. Served four of us.
Did the officers have different food than the men?
I really don't remember. I don't remember. I would say probably not. Only because you had such a small ship that probably not.
Did you have plenty of supplies and other things that you needed? Were there shortages of anything?
I don't think so. That we stopped at various places. Now, if I can understand that we might have run short if we hadn't gone to the Philippines or gone, but we had our routine was to be underway for probably for a week or so, and then go into port. So probably not.
Did you feel any pressure or stress as an officer?
I don't remember that. Now I don't remember any. I don't know. I don't think so.
Was there anything special that you did for good luck?
For good luck? Oh. Well, I not particularly. We had the same people served aboard that ship. The officers, for instance, the commanding officer was the Tweetmeyer, and he now is in Florida, and he was only 26. And
Tweetmeyer?
Tweet Meyer. And a neighbor of mine has a place in Florida, and he met this person. I gather, I don't know where he met him, but and it was Tweetmeyer, and Tweetmeyer said, "I know somebody that from Avon, and do you know him?" He lived right next door.
Oh my heavens, what a small world.
Yeah, yeah.
So that whole crew, you're saying crew, you were together the whole time?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Well, there may have been replacements, but
Pretty much it
there
was the same group?
Yeah, and the officers were I think were probably the same. At least the commanding officer, the executive officer, and myself, and the signal officer. I don't remember anyone else. Just the four of us.
Do you remember the names of the signal officer or the executive officer?
Yeah, Al Carloni, and he was.
He was the signal officer or the exec?
No, he was the signal officer, and he came from. Well, I don't know where he came from. I believe he came from the Boston area, but anyway, he lived when he got out of the service. He lived in Connecticut, in the southern part of the state, and the commanding officer was Tweetmeyer, was from Detroit, and actually I think he probably worked for one of the big companies, and the executive officer was from Maryland, and his name misses me at the moment, but
well, if you think of it, we'll come back.
yeah.
What did you do for entertainment? Well, we know you played poker and you played bridge.
Well, that I guess that was it.
That was it?
Well, perhaps.
Did you have movies or?
No. Well, I think there were movies for some of the ships, but our ship was so small that I don't think so. They may have.
Did you ever see any of the USO shows?
No.
Did you have leave at all?
No.
Did you get to travel while you were in any of these other countries? Did you get to see any of the country themselves?
No. Well, on one occasion, which I've already mentioned, we were able to leave the ship and look and view Nagasaki. But that was the same, just a day of the same day. Probably the most outstanding experience that I had, and I'm not a Catholic, but it was to attend a Catholic service on Christmas Eve, and I remember this was a church, and it was, I don't know just why we happened to be going, but there
What country were you in then?
in Japan, and I presume that the Catholic Church was kind of a mission church, but I don't know that. But anyway, the part that I particularly remember is there were, oh heavens, there were, I say several hundred, but maybe not. They left their shoes, the members, the Japanese people who went to the service, left their shoes in in the vestibule, and left there. And there may have been, I don't know, there were lots. I don't know how they managed to know who, or which ones were theirs, but anyway, they did.
Did you follow the custom and leave your shoes also?
I don't remember that we did.
What was your impression of Nagasaki when you went to see it?
Oh, it was just, it was just plain destroyed. It was, there may have been, well, I don't know. I don't think there was anything that was left there, but maybe there was, you know.
Did you take any pictures?
I have a picture that I don't know whether I can. You're welcome to it if I have it, if I can find it.
Great. Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events while you were in the service?
There is a photograph, and I don't know whether I can have this one, but there was the three guys using an outhouse aboard ship, and the whole world could could see them, and they were, and it was a good photo. And that one, if I can find one, that one you
don't have to write this down. I'll write a note,
Oh,
and I'll
okay.
remind you at the end. And did you take that picture, or were you one of the three guys in that picture?
No, I was not one of the three guys in it, and I didn't take the picture, and but I did get a copy of it, and I hope I've got it.
Did you guys play pranks on each other at all?
Did they what?
Did you play pranks on each other?
Well, I'm sure we did, but I don't remember that we did.
What did you think of the officers and the soldiers? Actually, you don't call Navy men soldiers, do you?
They were
Sailors?
They were sailors, I suppose. Yeah.
What was your impression of the officers and then the sailors?
The officers were able people. They were probably, well, they were they may have been a rank above me, but I don't know that they were. But they may have been, because I was a lieutenant, a JG, and may have been a full lieutenant. The commanding officer may have been a full lieutenant, but the executive officer was not, and the signal officer was not. So.
What was your impression of the sailors?
They were people who tended to business, and for instance, the oldest guy in the aboard ship was one of my crew members. That is one of the engineering crew, and he was 39, and he had come from, I don't know, the oil fields in either Arizona or something, and so he knew the engineering aspects, and then the captain, the chief petty officer of that group was, and I still have contact with him, and he's in Richmond, California.
How many men did you have under you, under your command?
Probably 5 to 7. That may have been more, but you had a crew that is for a watch. It would be probably 8 hours, and so that would be 8 people, because there's no way, no one ever stood a watch alone. So that would be 8, 2, and it would be 8 people. So it may have been 9 or 10.
Can you describe what a typical day would be for you as an officer? Now, you said you actually didn't work on the engines, you supervised the sailors. What would a typical, if you can say there ever was a typical day, be from when you got up until the end of the day? What would you do?
Well, that's a good question, because I've never addressed that issue, and I didn't address it as a crew member, and I haven't addressed it since. Probably I don't think you can say it was typical, but we did have the opportunity, for instance, in the Hawaiian Islands, particularly because we were there for a longer period of time. When our ship went to sea, it would go to one of the other islands, and we would then have an opportunity to see what those other islands were like. For instance, one place was I don't know that there was a negative aspect to it, but we were in there were I don't know. Anyway, we were at another island, and this other island had a the goats, and I think there were goats, and there were wild animals, this you can call it the Rockies in the Philippines. I mean, in the Hawaiian Islands, but it was similar to the Colorado Rockies, and but I don't, and we did have an opportunity to take time off and go into the islands for a number of these islands. We had, and this one now. I understand that it's built up, and it's just everything is built up and beautiful, well, now, and when we were there, it was limited to metal buildings, and there might have been something that would be permanent, but I don't think there was on it. And
As the engineering officer of the ship, were you an expert with the diesel engines?
I never saw a diesel engine until I went aboard ship. Well, no, that's not true, because when I experienced when I well at Cornell, I saw diesel engines there, but no, that was no. My task was to supervise the men, and you know, and they were pretty good.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
No, not particularly.
You were in San Diego?
Yes, I left ship, and then from that point on, I drove overland, and the signal officer, then he was the commanding officer, and he took the ship around the canal and up the Solomons, Maryland, and so that he was the fourth retiree. I mean, all of us had. There was no way that I was going to take the time to go back and go through the canal again, and because I had coming out, I had witnessed all that, and I was ready to go home.
You were. Did you stop at Yankton College on your way back home to Connecticut?
Yes.
How long did you stay? Just for a quick visit?
Just for, well, actually I was able to go there during commencement, and I remember that the president, who was an acting president at the time, he apologized because of some, I don't know, just now, I don't even know now why he apologized. But anyway, the incident was that it had to do with the cum laude, and apparently it was not on my on the certificate that I received, and he was embarrassed because of it.
So you graduated cum laude from your class?
Yes, yes.
All right, so that was graduation. It must have been May of
Well,
that year.
It must have been May, and you see, I didn't graduate with the class because I went into the service, and so it must have been a year or two later. It must have been
1945?
45 maybe.
So while you were there, did you actually participate in the graduation ceremony and got your degree?
Well, I remember remember attending the graduation, and I must have.
And then you went back home to Avon, Connecticut?
Yeah.
And what did you do there?
Well, I was I was trying to get into law school.
You knew at that point you wanted to be a
Yeah.
lawyer?
Well, I wanted to be either in law school or a minister, and most of me wanted to be a lawyer. So I pulled that one, and then I didn't want to go. I was admitted to the University of Chicago. I was admitted to Yale. I didn't want to go to UConn because at those days, UConn, the law school, was just was kind of it wasn't it had no notoriety to it at all, and I felt that that you really should go to a school where the background of the school had made a difference, and so I went to Georgetown.
You did. Did you go on the GI Bill?
Yes, and I went to, oh heavens, I went to all 3 years. The third year, I can't say that it was only that, because my wife, I got married the third year, and she was a school teacher, and so she came to Washington and taught school for.
Did you form any close friendships while you were in the service?
I would say Bob, the chief petty officer.
What was his last name? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
That's all right, Bob. He was the chief. Did you stay in touch after the war?
Yes. In fact, I still do. And then there was Moon. Was a member of our engineering crew.
Moon?
Yeah, and he has died, and but even up until a year or two ago, his widow we kept in touch with, but now she has died. So.
Did you stay in touch with any other?
Well, there was Tweetmeyer. We still have Tweetmeyer. I think Christmas cards are mostly. And Carloni, who was the signal officer, Al Carloni, until he died, we would stay in touch with him.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
I would say I'm active in the VFW.
And that's the VFW in Avon, Connecticut?
Yes.
What post? Do you know what post number?
3272.
How long have you been a member?
Oh, since 46.
Oh, you joined right away?
Yeah.
After.
I think it's 46, but I'm not sure. I'm on I'm an officer, not a major officer, I don't think, but anyway, legal officer, and and for instance, we're now holding or working toward the 60th anniversary, which is a couple of months.
60th anniversary of your post?
No, 60th. Of the founding of the VFW in Avon.
Were you one of the founding members?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I was close, but not. I don't think so. Because my folks lived in Simsbury, and I was born in Simsbury, and I went to Avon from the second grade on. When they lived in Simsbury, then I lived with them. So I did not.
What other activities does your VFW post engage in?
Well, let's see. We have a dinner once a month, and the women's auxiliary put that on. And now, the auxiliary doesn't mean that the women had to be involved in the military. They may have been, but there really were. The auxiliary is a group of women that they're accepted as members, but when we have meetings, they go into their room, and then the post has its room, and so I would say and if you're a VFW member, then you had to be in military service overseas, and that's why I'd never thought about that, but that's the reason for it.
Did you join any other veterans organizations?
No. I don't know that there have been any in Avon.
So you have lived since the war in Avon, Connecticut?
Oh yeah, I've lived all my life.
After you graduated from law school at Georgetown, and you were married by that time, you came back to Connecticut and settled here in Avon?
Yeah. And
opened up your own practice?
Yes. Yeah.
So you've been in law practice since what year?
40, I was 50.
Wow.
Anyway, in 50 I was admitted to practice in Connecticut in 50. So we were married in 48. So that's pretty close.
And you're still practicing law today?
Oh yeah.
This is 2005.
Yeah.
Did you have children?
Five daughters.
All girls.
Yeah, and one of them just had her baby a couple of days ago, and that one and another one, they run the village, the complex. They're one of them. They're pretty good. I guess I would say I'm proud of them.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
My feeling, and because of the peculiar nature of my service, which was non-military, really. It was military, but it was
non-combat?
Yes, and I felt that I gained a major benefit, and I wonder if people who've been in the service don't fail to realize that they really have gotten a major benefit from this. So, now, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but here, the federal government pays for your time to interview me. That's for whatever it's worth.
Well, actually, the federal government doesn't pay for my time. Volunteers do this. I volunteer my time.
Oh, do you?
The federal government legislated this project into existence, but they don't pay to have
Oh,
it.
that's good for you.
Well, good for our veterans.
Well, good for both.
Do you attend any reunions? Has your unit had any reunions?
No, ours has not. Now, one of the secretaries, her husband was in the Navy. I don't know what he was. And anyway, she's worked for me for 47 years, and but her husband, and they go to reunions all over the place, and that's good.
But you haven't gone to any?
No. But we have not had them.
Probably because your ship was so small.
Well, that could be. That's you have maybe 30 at most, and half of those have passed away. I'll bet.
Yeah. How would you say your military service affected your life?
Well, it made it possible for me to go to law school, and because of the dollar benefits, and because that was a major.
Do you think that you would have gone to law school otherwise had you not been in the service and got the GI Bill?
I would think so, yeah. But I don't know how I would have done it. But I really, yes, I would think so.
Do you think your life would have been different had you not been in the military?
I don't know. Not, maybe. I think that being in the military, because so many people were in the military, that you had a sense of belonging, and that was important. Whereas it might not have happened, but I would think it would have.
Do you think that the leadership skills that you learned as an officer helped you in your career?
I would think so, and I would think that's a good question, because I don't think I've ever really spent time analyzing that. And no, I think it would.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we haven't covered in the interview?
Well, I'll try to find the photograph of the three guys.
That would be great.
Sitting on the, and they were part of the crew and part of my engineering crew. So they were.
So you were basically responsible for these three guys.
Oh yes.
Do you think you were a good officer?
I would expect so. I don't know, but I think so, yes.
Do you think your men would have said you were a good officer?
I think so.
Did you keep a personal diary at all while you were in the service?
No. No, I did not.
there anything else that you can think of?
No, you.
Any other stories or incidents? You'll think of something when we stop taping.
Yes. Well, probably the most, the most, I don't know whether you'd say, what you would say it was the most, but was the experience of going to the Catholic service on Christmas Eve and seeing all the shoes around, but also seeing the people. You know, there must have been, oh gosh, the place was full, and they were. I say they were Catholics. They must have been converts, but they must have been, yeah. And no one ever asked me, was I a Christian or was I a Catholic or a Protestant. They didn't care. I think that was good. So I don't know. That probably was the high point of my experience. I would, you know, if I were to highlight the various incidents, I would say that one, the fact that I saw Nicky Farmagione aboard ship when I was really looking for somebody else, and here, the three of us would have come from Avon, and this was it was the Franklin, because the Franklin was it was shot up by the Japanese, and it was then came back into the harbor. Yeah.
Well, Robert, I'd like to thank you for sharing your stories.
Hey, I think I don't know whether I talk well, but I can talk plenty.
You think that's typical of a lawyer?
Oh, yes. Well, I probably tend to talk. I mean, I'm less likely to spearhead my comments than I used to be, and that part is kind of a problem. It's it has nothing to do with this issue, but maybe it does. You can say all you want to about the law in learning it, and I tell people that that's all important, but also probably the more important is the experience that you get, or you're able to give it, and the older lawyer has that, and he doesn't have, or he doesn't. The younger lawyer doesn't have that, and so that's good.
Well, and I think that your military experience added to your life experience.
Oh, it must have. Yes, yeah.
Robert, I'd like to thank you for your service to our country also.
Well, thank you.